The second annual edition of AEW Double or Nothing took place last night from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, and also TIAA Bank Field, which is the home of the Jacksonville Jaguars, their football stadium. So you had a very good show considering the circumstances, and I like how they brought up what was going on this week. You had two terrible deaths. You had Shad Gaspard, who died a week ago, and then you had Hana Kimura, who committed suicide, and they brought both of them up. And it was also a sad week, too, because you had the Dark Side of the Ring special on Owen Hart. So I think the AEW wrestlers knew that a lot of fans were down, and of course the coronavirus. They were really motivated, and they took a show that was basically in an empty arena. And we had wrestlers in the audience, but I mean, there was a dozen of them. And they went out there and they tore it up. They worked hard, and I thought if you had a crowd with this show, it would have been a fantastic show. I want to call it a great show. I call it a very good show, but if you have a crowd here, this is a great show, because there's some matches I'm watching, especially the Cody match and the women's match and the Moxley match. If this had a crowd, they'd be fucking losing their minds right now, but we had a good show. I would say there's two problems. One, I thought it was too long. You could have cut off a couple of matches. And two, I would also say that you had a bit too much repetitive, too much brawling in the crowd. You had go on a bit too much. So that's my only complaints. You had the buy-in show, which was the Best Friends who beat Private Party. This was just a fun opener, a spot fest. I didn't really pay much attention to it because it didn't mean much to me. It was just on the pre-show, or buy-in, that's what they call it. Best Friends are a solid team. I think they missed the boat with them, and Private Party's a good team. I think they missed the boat with them, and Best Friends went over them right here. So we'll see what they do with Beretta and Taylor. So if they want to push them, I'm not sure, but I'm sure they're going to lose to Moxley and Page, Hangman, if they have that match. You have the show finally take place. The show starts. You have a Casino ladder match, which is basically a Royal Rumble ladder match. That's how I would explain it to you. I thought it was a clusterfuck in some parts. Other parts it was good. It was a mixed bag. There was parts I loved it and parts I hated it. There was too much comedy, and this is the kind of thing, I don't think AEW should be doing this indie wrestler kind of comedy, this Chikara stuff or stuff like that, because you're on such a bigger stage. I don't think the majority of mainstream wrestling fans like it or are on it, so you have to be careful with stuff like this. The match was crazy. You had some scary bumps. You had Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian start the match, and then they were wrestling against each other even though they're both in SCU. Then you had Kip Sabian out next, and Penelope Ford came out with him, and she posed on the stage, and Jesus, we got some nice Penelope Ford tonight. Kip Sabian's such a lucky bastard. Then you had Jimmy Havoc there as well, and they're a team now. You had Frankie Kazarian suplex Jimmy Havoc into a ladder, and then you had Darby Allin come out and act with a skateboard, and he did some crazy stuff. So the big thing was, first the big spot was, there's a ladder bridge on the outside. Darby Allin puts Frankie Kazarian on the ladder bridge, and he goes to the top with the skateboard. He does a skateboard dive feet first. It's like a skateboard foot stomp. But, of course, thank God Frankie Kazarian misses, because if he doesn't, it probably kills him, to be honest. But he missed. He moves out of the way, and Darby Allin smashes through the ladder bridge. It's like he just blew out both his knees. That's how bad it looked. Orange Cassidy's out next. Of course, he's lazy. He doesn't want to wrestle. He just looks... He's trying to reach the poker chip without the ladder, and then he has to put the ladder down, not climb it, just put it down on its side to try and step over it. He's so lazy, he hits his trademark kick, and I think he does that too much now. I don't know if this is the kind of match for that. I think it's entertaining at first, but it goes a bit overboard, especially when he does a dive. He barely touches anyone, everyone sells that. That's something I don't like. Joey Janela comes out next. He hits a dive off the stage, and he hits up a lariat on the barricade. There was a chair shot. Kazarian gets hit with a chair by Scorpio Sky. Luchasaurus comes out next. He powerbombs Kip Sabian over the top rope, and a bunch of guys catch him on the floor. He slams Kazarian on the ladder, and then you had the mystery participant. Who is number 8? Who is it going to be? It is Brian Cage, accompanied with Taz. Cage comes out. Brian Cage is jacked. He's a monster. He climbs the ladder, he's killing everyone, and he had Orange Cassidy jump on his back, and everyone tries to pull Brian Cage off, and they throw him outside, they pile ladders, and then they put a piece of barricade, and they take a giant poker chip from the top of the stage, and they, like, bury him under a poker chip. It was funny, all the rubble. So Brian Cage has been buried. Then Kip Sabian hits a coast-to-coast ladder spawn to Colt Cabana. Then he had Penelope Ford come out, and what happens was Kip Sabian had been knocked out by Orange Cassidy, and Penelope Ford jumps, she climbs the ladder, and I would have loved to have been in the crowd to have seen a great view of her ass from that high, but it looks like, is Orange Cassidy going to kiss her? Because when he took her, grabbed both arms, this is an attitude era spot when you kiss her on the apron, but he doesn't, he just lets Penelope Ford fall back, and she falls back onto Kip Sabian, who was onto a ladder, so he kind of cushioned her for going back first into the ladder. He had Marq stunt run in, he does the assistant chokeslam to Orange Cassidy off a ladder onto a rope, and that stuff was just, I hate Marq stunts. He had he had a few botches here. Luchasaurus botch, a big spot there. He had Joey Janela hit a Death Valley driver off the apron onto Orange Cassidy. You had Scorpio Sky and Frankenstein climb the ladder, but Luchasaurus and Cage took them out. Luchasaurus and Cage traded strikes, and then Brian Cage powerbombs Luchasaurus onto a ladder. Brian Cage climbs to the top. Darby Allin jumps in, but Brian Cage stops him climbing. He hits his finisher to Darby Allin. He sets up a ladder. Cage sets up a ladder across the top rope. Allin laid across the ladder and fell off. The camera, and what he did was he just threw him off. It was crazy. It was a good spot. The camera cut away, and then he after he throws Darby Allin out, he climbs the ladder, he retrieves the chip, and Brian Cage wins it, and he's your number one contender. So I thought it was a clusterfuck in some part, but I thought the ending was good. I thought it was a good way to get Brian Cage over. Next, you had MJF and Jungle Boy. This is a very solid matchup. I thought it went on too much. I think if they're going to push MJF, he should have had more of a decisive win. If you can't beat Jungle Boy, what makes you think you're going to have a chance to beat Jon Moxley? That's all I was thinking in this match. And I thought that was a bit of a problem. But I thought they did well. They had a very good match. They went back and forth. They had a lot of action here. It was an exciting match. There was parts, oh shit, is Jungle Boy going to win? Like, that's they're going to push Jungle Boy, but I'm not sure how much. There was a cool sit-out powerbomb from the middle rope for a near fall by Jungle Boy. MJF went for a shoulder breaker, but his back gave out. They traded Kratos for a near fall. MJF is finally able to get the salt of the earth applied, but Jungle Boy uses a schoolboys for a 2 count. The finish saw another exchange of quick Kratos. However, MJF is able to cradle Jungle Boy. He uses a cradle clutch, and he gets the win. It was a cool ending. It was a very cool way he used that European cradle clutch, and MJF defeats Jungle Boy. But I thought he needed a more decisive win against Jungle Boy if they're going to push him to a much higher position. Mike Tyson's up next. He comes out with the unfinished TNT Championship, and man, he was yawning in this match, as a lot of people were. So basically, this thing's not finished. It has silver plates and a red strap. The gold plating will be added to the silver at a later date. But yeah, this is an unfinished belt. So Lance Archer entered the ring, and he comes out. He comes out with Jake Roberts. He has Lee Johns. He hits a chokeslam on him, and then he had Mike Tyson who he sold it well. I thought it was funny. You have Bryce Renberg as the he offers the commenters opportunity to. He offers once Cody comes out later, Cody's next. He comes up with Arn Anderson, and the referee, he offers the two of them to shake hands. They do not. Cody ain't shaking Lance Archer's hand. And this would have worked fantastic in front of a crowd. Cody's matches work great in crowds. This did not work much for an empty crowd. It was still a good match, but I thought this was not great. I thought it needed more of a crowd. I was thinking all his matches, all those classic matches he's had on pay-per-view. At first, he had the match with Nick Aldis, which was very good at All In. Then he had that awesome match with his brother Dustin at Double or Nothing. Then he had the great match with Chris Jericho at the November show. I forget what it's called now. And then he had a damn good match with MJF at the show in February. So he's had a string of great pay-per-view matches. This was not one of them. This was good. I thought this would have been fantastic in front of a crowd. So he started off with Lance Archer absolutely murdering Cody. It teases like he hits his finisher in the first 30 seconds. Like, oh, is this going to be a squash? And he beats the living hell out of Cody Rhodes. He is kicking his ass. It's just a beating. Cody has nothing. And they showed Mike Tyson like 3 times, and one of them he was yawning. And that was kind of boring at first. They're waiting, okay, come on, when's this match going to turn around? Eventually, Cody's able to turn the match around. There was too much brawling on the other side. I thought the match was a bit too long. That's another complaint, but I thought it would have been really good if they would have cut off a couple of minutes, or 3-4 minutes at least. Cody is able to have a huge comeback later in the match, finally, after he uses a crossface. He hits a DDT to Archer in front of Jake Roberts, which was awesome, using his own finisher, and then he hits a second rope cutter to Archer, but Archer kicks out, and then he had an awesome part where Lance Archer hits the spine buster in front of Arn Anderson. That was a cool moment. And of course, you had Jake Roberts get involved a million times. You had Arn Anderson get angry too, and of course Arn gets involved. He gives Cody a big boost, but then after Cody hits the crossroads, the ref throws Arn Anderson out of the match, and after Cody hits a superplex. And so Arn Anderson's out, but Jake Roberts gets sent away too. Jake Roberts comes back with the snake in the bag. However, that snake never gets used. And second referee ran to the ring and alerts the referee of Anderson's actions. And eventually both leave. Tyson jumped on the stage and he cuts off Jake Roberts. And I wanted to bring this spot earlier in the match. I missed this, but Cody had a cool spot where he used 3 generations of Rhodes, or not really 2 generations. But it was the Rhodes dynasty. He hits his father's bionic elbow, and he hits his brother's suplex, brainbuster, whatever it's called, and he hits the crossroads. But of course, Archer kicks out. Once Tyson gets rid of Jake Roberts, he didn't knock him out, but they had Archer goes for a blackout. Cody blocks, hits a crossroads, and he hits another one, and he gets the win. Cody Rhodes is your TNT champion. Cool moment. Tyson, of course, he has to take his shirt off to show how jacked he is. He wants to make a comeback. We'll see if he does that, but this is a cool moment for Cody Rhodes. He is your first TNT champion. A match that was good. I think would have been great in front of a crowd. He had Alex Marvez interview Dr. Sampson about Britt Baker, and Britt has a bad injury, so she's not going to be there, and of course she gets replaced by Penelope Ford, and match quality would have been better with Britt, obviously, but hey, you get to see Penelope Ford's sexy ass, I'm not complaining. The match was okay. It was kind of a filler match, unfortunately, because of the spot they were in. Statlander's big. She's big. And Kip Sabian's with Penelope Ford there. They had a cool spot where Statlander does a suicide dive onto Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian. She uses... she grabs... they had Penelope Ford grab her hair, and Penelope... is able to hit a draping DDT that did not look good. Oh, I like her, but it didn't look good. She then takes takes control after Statlander hits a suicide dive, and she takes Penelope in the ring. That's when the dive happened. She hits a Falcon Arrow for near fall. Penelope Ford blocks a big bang there. She hits the inverted DDT. She hits a Matrix back end, and she tries a stunner. Didn't look good. She did the trash was the Matrix, but I think Penelope Ford needs a lot more seasoning in the ring. But if she can ever just become good, she doesn't need to be great. She just needs to be good. She can be such a superstar. AEW needs to push her, but this chick can be such a star. I hope they realize it, because if you don't be careful, AEW, Vince McMahon will sign Penelope Ford in a heartbeat. He'll snatch her up, a hot blonde like her. Are you kidding me? Anyway, Statlander hits her finisher, a Blue Thunder Bomb. She hits the Big Bang Theory on Penelope Ford. She pins her great. She pins her in a way where the camera is directly under Penelope Ford's ass, which I thankful for. Thank you. Thank you for that. Great view, Chris. Really, you pinned Penelope. But Statlander gets the win. The Big Bang Theory is a cool finisher too, but that's it for Penelope Ford. And they give it to Statlander. I think Britt Baker would have probably beaten Statlander in this match if she never got hurt. Shawn Spears comes in washing. He comes in his stupid suit. I don't know. Is he making fun of Vince McMahon? I don't know what this is. Anyway, Dustin comes out after Brandy introduces him. Brandy comes out to his music. Dustin comes in, and Dustin throws all his suit off. He spanks him, which looked awful. And then he had Tully Blanchard's face on the crotch of his under. It was just awful. He hits a that match was a piece of shit. Worst part of the show was this. hate this. I don't care about Shawn Spears. He sucks. Right? He was nothing in WWE. I don't care about the stupid feud. They announced All Outs on September 5th. That's some big news, at least. They display a Nakamura graphic, and I thought that was very classy of them. Excalibur gave a sincere speech about the tragedy of her death at 22 years old. He asked everyone to be nicer on social media. I think we can all follow that. Rest in peace, Hana. If you haven't watched it, watch my video I did before this video. It's right on my on the timeline. You can see a paid tribute to Hana Nakamura, only 22 years old. Terrible tragedy. So you have the AEW Women's World Championship. You have the champ Niylah Rose defends her title in a no DQ match against Hikaru Shida. There's some people saying, I hear some idiots saying, oh, she only won because of Hana Nakamura's death. I don't think so. I think Shida was going to win this match the way they were building it up, especially the way they built it up on the show and the Dynamite before this. I thought for sure Shida was winning. So I don't think it's because of Hana's death, but I thought it was an amazing moment, the way she paid tribute to her. But the match itself was a good match. I really liked it. Probably the best Niylah Rose match she's had. She had a kendo stick early. Niylah Rose has Shida's trademark kendo stick, and they have some hard shots by Niylah Rose onto Shida. They brawl outside. Niylah Rose puts Shida through a poker table, which was funny. I thought that was funny. And there was multiple table spots. Back inside, Shida blocks a beast bomb and comes back with a series of knee strikes. They brawled back to the floor around the arena, and she used some of the poker chips, and she hits a cool knee strike onto Niylah Rose, and they fall over a poker chip. They brought back to the floor and around the arena. Shida used some of the poker chips to deliver knee strikes again. Rose hit her top rope draping DDT for a near fall. Niylah Rose sets up a table in the corner and teased the DVD, but Shida blocked it. Shida instead hits a power bomb. Niylah Rose instead hit a power bomb onto Shida through a table set up in the corner. She only gets a 2 count. Niylah Rose hits a DVD and used a kendo stick to deliver some more punishment. Niylah Rose goes to put her off on the top rope. Shida cuts her off, and she hits a Falcon Arrow off the top rope for a near fall. And then Shida hits the Shining Wizard. Niylah Rose kicks out, and then she takes the kendo stick and bam! She hits Niylah Rose so fucking hard in the head, knocks her out. She hits a second Shining Wizard. 1, 2, 3. Shida is your new champion. Feel good moment of the night without question. Pays tribute to her good friend Hana Nakamura. Rest in peace, Hana. This is a great moment. Hikaru Shida is your new AEW Women's Champion. She's tears, she's emotional, and she points to the sky for her friend. This was an amazing moment and really cool. And I like how after the match, the announcers talk about how WWE would just ignore this. Oh, we don't want to talk about Shad or Hana or the Owen documentary, but they say this is a very tough week in wrestling. We wanted to give you a good moment. That's what they basically said. This was a cool moment seeing Hikaru Shida win this belt. I really liked it. Feel good moment. Then you had the AEW World Championship match, Jon Moxley against Brodie Lee. This was awesome. This was a brawl. This was a fight. They've had matches in WWE, nothing as good as this. This was just a deep... it's been a while since you've seen guys really kick each other's ass this way. So it starts off okay. There's a lot of brawling. I think I just seen Shida and Niylah Rose fight through the whole crowd. I saw Lance Archer and Cody do that too. I've seen it a bit too much now, so I'm thinking, I need to see more brawling. Then it gets really, really good. They go back outside. Moxley sent to the ring steps. Moxley tries a regal knee. Lee blocks it. Moxley hits a backdrop off the steps through the timekeeper's table on Brodie Lee, which was cool. They go back in the ring, and then they go back to the floor. He had Brodie Lee whip Moxley into some of the playing cards. They had all those playing cards. Yeah, this would have been awesome, and they had the real set again. Like they had the poker chips, you had cards, you had a casino, you had poker tables all over set up. You didn't have some dice. You needed dice. That was the one thing that was missing. We had poker chips on dice. They go back inside, and they go back and forth a lot. And eventually, they're brought to the stage. And I thought you had probably the craziest spot of the night, and that includes a Stadium Stampede match. Moxley, they're on the stage. Moxley hits the double arm DDT, and they go through the ramp. They just smash through it. It was an insane spot. You could have heard "holy shit" spots, chants from the crowd there. The craziest spot of the night, just insane. Like, holy fuck, it was just painful. And it was like they were going through something hard. It was just like painful. They both go through it. Eventually, they have referees and road agents come to the stage. Moxley crawls out of the stage first, and Lee comes out, and his forehead's bleeding because he went head first into the stage. Brodie Lee's busted open. He's wobbly. Moxley hits a paradigm shift, but Brodie Lee kicks out at one. Moxley hits a second paradigm shift. He kicks out at two. Then he just starts elbowing him right in the fucking open wound. And eventually, he gets him in a bulldog choke. He transitions to a rear naked choke. Brodie Lee is so beat up, he just passes out, but he never gets pinned. Brodie Lee passes out. Jon Moxley, the referee stops the match. Jon Moxley retains the title. Hell of a matchup. I thought that was great. They do a commercial for the upcoming AEW action figure line. It looks like a year old, to be honest, but it was still cool. They recap all the matches from the poker match, or the casino ladder match. Then you had an MJF match, Cody winning the belt. You had Penelope Ford losing to Statlander. You had, and they definitely give her a sharp Penelope Ford's ass. Thank you again. That awful Shawn Spears Dustin match. Then they went to the Shida match for winning the belt. And of course the Moxley match. And that's how they recapped it. It was pretty much over for Daly's Place. Then we go to the main event, which is going to take place at the Jaguar Stadium. And we go to the Stadium Stampede match. I loved it. This was so awesome. This was one of my favorite matches ever. And I like football, so I'm a football fan, so I'm going to enjoy this no matter what because of the way they set it up. But they basically have them come out as a football team. First, you have the Inner Circle come out when Jericho's music Jericho's Fozzy song plays Judas. And what they have is you have the Jaguars cheerleaders there, and you have marching band was there. The Inner Circle comes on, they have their own football uniforms, and they announce their numbers. First Jericho, then Hager, then Santana, then Ortiz, and then Sammy Guevara, and they all have their own jerseys. This was awesome. I love this. The Elite come out next with that being the Elite song. They entered in their wrestling gear. They have jersey numbers. You had Matt Jackson and Nick Jackson come out first because they're the captains. And then you had Kenny Omega, then you had Matt Hardy come out, actually, I think it was Kenny Omega next, then Matt Hardy, and then you had Hangman Page not enter, he entered last, but not entered this team, he'd come out later. You had all of them looking confused, but Omega knows what's up. Then, of course, the match starts. You have Aubrey Edwards blow the whistle to start like a football match. They brawl over the football field to start. You had a trash can used by Matt Hardy. Hangman Page finally enters. He enters on a giant horse. And it's a Jaguar skin. Wouldn't that make sense more like it was the Broncos skin? Don't they have the horse, the crazy horse Stormy? But a Jaguar stadium. What's a horse have to do with the Jags? But he's the Hangman, I guess. This was a cool spot when he came out. He changes, the horse chases Sammy Guevara. Guevara has to run off the field. He runs up the tunnel, and then the horse follows him backstage. And of course, Hangman just wanders around on the horse the entire half the match. So they do some spots in the ring, a little bit stuff in the ring. Eventually they go, people want to see him fight this in the stadium. Hager throws, hit a throw on Omega. There was a side effect. Sammy Guevara runs back on the field. He climbs the top rope, but he misses a shooting star press. And then Jericho gets out of the ring, and they had Santana hit a moonsault onto a crowd of guys. Guevara hit a shooting star post onto the group, and then Matt Jackson hit a moonsault off the... This was a crazy spot. They get a ladder. I'm going to talk about it in detail. They get a ladder. They go to the football, one of the end zones. Matt Jackson gets a ladder. He climbs up to the goalpost. He hits a moonsault off the goalpost onto everyone. And Matt in the video, he was teasing Nick was going to jump off. It was Matt. He does a moonsault off the goalpost. I thought that was the craziest thing we'd see. It wasn't. Then you had wrestlers fight in the stands. Omega and Hardy fight with Santana and Ortiz into the stands. And then it becomes Matt against the other two by himself. We had Hangman riding a horse through the stadium, through the tunnels. Eventually he finds a stadium bar. He leaves the horse and he goes straight to the bar. That was hilarious. Then Santana and Ortiz start beating down Hardy and then they hit a tandem powerbomb on Omega through a piece of the barricade. They balanced on tabletops. That was a cool looking spot, actually. Ortiz and Santana throw Hardy into one of the stadium swimming pools. The Jaguars have swimming pools in their stadium. They're the only team who does that, but it's Florida. So they dunk Hardy in, and this was funny because it turns into the Lake of Reincarnation. That was really entertaining. They dunk him first, and first he emerges the classic Matt Hardy, the Hardy voice Matt Hardy from the 90s, and then or from the early 2000s. Then they dunk him again. He becomes Matt Hardy 6, or Matt Hardy version 1. I mean, version 1, complete with the Matt fact, which was hilarious. Then they dunk him in again, and he finally comes out as Broken Matt, and that's when it gets really entertaining. He hits Ortiz with the stadium bell, which was funny, and Hardy stuffs Santana into he ties Ortiz up in a wheelchair, and he stuffs Santana into the freezer, and he locks him with a broom. Hager and he encounters, he goes into the bar, and then he sees, he knows Hangman's going to be there. They drink beer first, and then they fight in a bar, and it turns into like a movie bar fight. This was funny. They each, Paige broke a cue over Hager's head, which was funny. Hager drags Paige across the bar like a movie, right like a movie, and he throws him into all the drinks. You see that in like every movie. They didn't do it in front of him. They needed to do the shot right in front of Paige to make that work. They throw stuff, they break bottles off Hager's head. He knows those. Finally, Omega's there, and then they keep breaking series of bottles, and finally works. Omega hits Hager with a V-trigger. Paige hit a buckshot lariat, and Hager flies off the bar. And then they destroy Hager, and then you have Omega and Paige toast with whiskey and milk. Omega drinks the milk, and Paige drinks the whiskey. That was really funny. Matt Jackson hits Sammy Guevara with a series of Northern Light suplex on the field. I thought that was probably the worst part. He does it over the entire football field, so that's 100 yards, and they keep cutting out. So I was not a huge fan of that spot. I thought that was a bit too tacky, a bit too hokey. Then as he continues, Nick Jackson throws footballs at Jericho, and that was funny. And then he throws out his balls, and then Jericho sends Nick into the mouth of a jaguar that's there. That was absolutely hilarious. And then Jericho, this is my favorite part. There's those annoying football mascots I hate. He hits the Judas effect on the Jaguars mascot, and he sells it. That was the best. He knocks him out. I loved it. And then Jericho uses his baseball bat Floyd. He hits Nick with it. He only gets a 2 count. He's challenging the play. He thinks it's over. Aubrey has to look at it, and they challenge it, and it's official. Nick kicked out, and Aubrey says call stands Jericho. I guess he can't lose a timeout, though. Matt finally finishes his Northern Light suplex to Sammy Guevara, and Guevara should be dead at that point, but he does a touchdown dance. He's then penalized for excessive celebration. That was awesome. I love that. Matt then he hits a super kick onto the referee, which was funny. Then Jericho goes for a bat shot on Nick, but Matt saved, and Nick hit a splash out of the stands onto Jericho through a table, which was cool. He basically he jumped down the stairs, and he walked down the stairs, and he did it off the stage. That was good. And then they go back up in the stands. There's a lot of fighting in the stands here. Guevara is finally awakened from his suplex, from the alarm sprinklers, and then Omega and Hardy appear with a golf cart. He just gets scared. It's just like Dynamite 2 weeks ago. He runs away. That was absolutely hilarious. Then Guevara goes into the stands. It sets up the finish. Guevara hits Kenny Omega and Hardy with boots to the face. Then the Neo one drone appears to track Guevara. Omega then they're in the stands, and they're on like a platform. And then Sammy Guevara gets the one-winged angel. He gets Guevara in the position. He jumps off the stands through a gimmick platform, and they smash through the platform, and that basically kills Sammy Guevara. Kenny Omega pins Sammy Guevara 1, 2, 3, and that is the match. The Elite and Matt Hardy win. Awesome moment. Matt Jackson gives Omega a Gatorade bath after the win, which was hilarious. The Elite pose on the field as fireworks go off, and basically they win the Super Bowl. That was just awesome. I love the Stadium Stampede match, one of my favorite matches I've seen in a while. I thought that was entertaining as hell. I love love these kind of gimmick matches. The only thing that's good about this fucking coronavirus is we're getting some of these cool matches, and hopefully they keep some of them. They shouldn't do it too much, but they should keep some of these matches because they're so entertaining. These are some of my favorite stuff. I thought this was great, and really made the show. I thought the show ended up being a very entertaining show, and the main event was just awesome. I love that main event.